The greater part of human pain is unnecessary. It is self created as long as the unobserved mind runs your life. The pain that you create now is always some form of non acceptance, some form of unconscious resistance to what is. On the level of thought, the resistance is some form of judgment. On the emotional level, it is some form of negativity. The intensity of the pain depends on the degree of resistance to the present moment, and this in turn depends on how strongly you are identified with your mind. The mind always seeks to deny the now and to escape from it. In other words, the more you are identified with your mind, the more you suffer. Or you may put it like this: the more you are able to honor and accept now, the more you are free from pain or suffering and free of the egoic mind. Why does the mind habitually deny or resist now? Because it cannot function and remain in control without time, which is past and future. So it perceives the timeless now as threatening. Time and mind are, in fact, inseparable. Imagine the earth devoid of human life, inhabited only by plants and animals. Would it still have a past and a future? Could we still speak of time in any meaningful way? The question, what time is it, or what's the day today, if anybody were there to ask it, would be quite meaningless. The oak tree or the eagle would be bemused by such a question. What time? They would ask. Well, of course, it's now. The time is now. What else is there? Yes, we need the mind as well as time to function in this world. But there comes a point where they take over our lives, and this is where dysfunction, pain, and sorrow set in. The mind, to ensure that it remains in control, seeks continuously to cover up the present moment with past and future. And so, as the vitality and infinite creative potential of being, which is inseparable from the now, becomes covered up by time, your true nature becomes obscured by the mind. An increasingly heavy burden of time has been accumulating in the human mind. All individuals are suffering under this burden, but they also keep adding to it every moment whenever they ignore or deny the precious moment or reduce it to a means of getting to some future moment which only exists in the mind, never in actuality. The accumulation of time in the collective and individual human mind also holds a vast amount of residual pain from the past. If you no longer want to create pain for yourself and others, if you no longer want to add to a residual past pain that still lives on you, then don't create any more time, or at least no more than in necessary to deal with the practical aspects of your life. How to stop creating time. Realize deeply that moment, the present moment, has all you ever have. Make the now the primary focus of your life. Whereas before you dwelt in time and paid brief visit to the now, have your dwelling place in the now and pay brief visit to past and future when required to deal with the practical aspect of your life situation. Always say yes to the present moment. What could be more fertile or insane than to create inner resistance to something that already is? What could be more insane than to oppose life itself, which is now and always now? Surrender to what is, say yes to life, and see how life suddenly starts working for you rather than against you. Oh, I like it. The present moment is sometimes unacceptable, unpleasant, or awful. Yes, is as it is. Observe how the mind labors it and how this labeling process, this continuous sitting in judgment, creates pain and unhappiness. By watching the mechanics of the mind, you step out of its resistance patterns, and you can then allow the present moment to be. This will give you the taste of the state of inner freedom from external conditions, the state of future inner peace. Then see what happens and take action if necessary or possible. Accept, then act. Whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it. Always work with it, not against it. Make it your friend and ally, not your enemy. This will miraculously transform your whole life. The origin of fear. You mentioned the fear as being part of our basic underlying emotional pain. How does fear arise, and why is there so much of it in people's lives? And isn't a certain amount of fear just healthy self-protection? If I didn't have a fear of fire, I might put my hand in it and get burnt. The reason why you don't put your hand in the fire is not because of fear, it's because you know that you get burnt. You don't need fear to avoid necessary danger, just a minimum of intelligence and common sense. For such practical matters, it is useful to apply the lessons learned in the past. Now, if someone threatens you with fire or with physical violence, you might experience something like fear. This is the instinctive shrinking back from danger, but not the psychological condition of fear that we are talking about here. The psychological condition of fear is divorced from any concrete and true immediate danger. It comes in many forms: unease, worry, anxiety, nervousness, tension, dread, phobia, and so on. This kind of psychological fear is always of something that might happen, not of something that is happening now. You are in the here and now, while your mind is in the future. This creates an anxiety gap. And if you are identified with your mind and have lost touch with the power and simplicity of the now, that anxiety gap will be your constant companion. You can always cope with the present moment, but you cannot cope with something that is only a mind projection. You cannot cope with the future. Moreover, as long as you are identified with your mind, the ego runs your life. As I pointed out earlier, because of its phantom nature and despite elaborate defense mechanism, the ego is very vulnerable and insecure, and it sees itself as constantly under threat.
자, 여러분들 선생님이 이번 주 여러분들과 함께 일주일 동안 매일 10분 쓰기 그리고 10분 말하기 연습해 보았는데요. 쉽지 않네요. 자, 현타라는 여러분들의 유행어 실감했습니다. 자, 잠깐 10분 동안 내가 쓰고 싶은 것에 대해서 쓰고, 그리고 잠깐 10분 동안 말하기가 힘들어서 보는 책을 보고 한번 읽어보았는데요. 진짜 쉽지 않네요. 쓰는 것은 틀려도 되니까 선생님이 하고 싶은 일들에 대해서 쭉쭉쭉쭉 썼고요. 10분이 정말 길구나 라고 느꼈습니다. 그리고 또 말하기는요, 그냥 말하기가 힘들어서 책을 보고 읽었습니다. 자, 발음 문제가 많이 있습니다. 모르는 단어 많이 있습니다. 그럼에도 불구하고 10분 쓰기, 10분 읽기 진행해 보았습니다. 자, 선생님이 만나본 여러분들은요, 너무 씩씩하고 멋지고 예쁘고 영어도 잘하고 똑똑한 친구들이었습니다. 지금 현재 여러분들이 어디에 있건 간에 여러분들은 다 영어 잘할 학생이에요. 선생님보다. 대학 교수님보다 훨씬 영어를 잘하는, 선생님보다 영어를 훨씬 더 잘할 운명입니다. 선생님과 함께 매일 10분 쓰기, 10분 말하기 연습하실 거죠? 화이팅!